this should have been an exercise that I've done for, years, but it's my first time doing this. So this is the nassthepod NBA Power Pool. Basically a power ranking, kind of me just assessing the 15-ish best teams in the league. I mean, you got two conferences, too many competitive teams, and, I want to read in between the lines a little bit. So at 15, I'm going to go 15-1. At 15, I have the Miami Heat. I liked the Terry Rozier trade. I liked the move. I feel like Jimmy Butler in years past, he's had to play like a little too much hero ball. For those of us that have watched Jimmy Butler, we know that his strong suit is not creating in isolation. He's not this flashy 3-level scorer. He knows when he needs to shoot and when he should lay back and get other guys involved, and that's the beauty in him. He's like the ultimate team player superstar, and we've seen it the past couple of years. He kind of coasts through regular seasons, like, he basically, it's just like he's kind of like a Ferrari throughout the whole year. He's just fine tuning, maintaining his body, making sure things are right. When it's time to, rev your engines and, get the race going come April, he's always ready, and he ends up playing like a top 5 player. And for that reason only, that is literally why, because of his last 2 playoff runs, specifically in the bubble and last year, those 2 specific playoff runs are reasons why people are scared to name 10 players better than Jimmy Butler, because of the way he ascends in the spring. It's just really scary. It's really, really scary. Like, he's outplayed Tatum, arguably the past 2 playoffs, arguably. And some people think definitively. I would actually be someone that could probably say definitively he's probably outplayed Tatum the past 2 playoffs. And that's just the beauty of Jimmy Butler. Obviously he's missed some games too this year, but, and he was a guy that almost made my All-Star team, but I think he's a guy that's also entering another chapter of his career. Not saying he's declining, but, I think it was very important for them to acquire Terry Rozier, because now they can go into a playoff setting with now 4 solid shot creators. You know what I mean? You got Butler, Terry, Tyler Hero, Jaquez Jr. that I talked about a while ago. Those are 4 guys that you can go into a playoff series, and now you're like, okay, Jimmy, you don't have to create every single play. You don't have to generate offense on every single possession. And Terry Rozier shooting, stretching the floor, I think that's going to be very beneficiary for Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, to be able to get to the rim. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is a volley and free throw shooter. That's arguably the best part of his game, is the way he gets to the line. He gets to the line like a guard. And it's just impressive, the way he is able to manipulate defenders and stay able to put up numbers. Like, he's still like a walking 20 and 5, honestly. He's maybe a steal, 2 blocks, a 3 or 2. So definitely don't want to underestimate Jimmy Butler, but the Miami Heat have been very, very cold as of late. They're the reason why I have him at 15. I want to see. I know Terry's still getting acclimated to his new role, and obviously there's going to be certain things that Spoelstra and Pat Riley are going to ask him to do that he has no experience doing. Granted, he has played some playoff basketball. He has some basketball under his belt, in the spring, obviously with his time with the Celtics. But when you think about it, the roles are kind of similar, because when he was in Boston, he was with Tatum and, Kyrie and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and Gordon Hayward and Marcus Morris and all these guys who needed touches. So Terry was kind of the guy that kind of had to earn his shine. You know what I mean? Now in Miami, he is, kind of similar to Boston. He is in a role where there's other guys who are probably, primary shot creators or primary, like, prioritize, score guys like Jimmy and Tyler Hero. Obviously Bam has now taken it. He's ascended as a guy that can create a shot for his own. So Terry is trying to find where he lands in all of that. Obviously, I know they're probably telling him, play your game. We didn't bring you in to fit. We brought you in to, be yourself. It's not really the offensive end I'm worried about with Terry. I'm just worried about the defensive end. I'm worried about, are there going to be certain games in the playoffs where he's kind of unplayable because of his size? This is a guy that's going to have to go guard guys like maybe Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey. He might draw Jaylen Brown on a switch, Trae Young. Like, I'm just trying to think of all the prolific point guard slash perimeter threats in the East. So that's something you want to watch out for. But they have insurance. They have, Martin off the bench. Obviously, they're season removed from, Max Strus and whatever. But I still think that the Heat have a card to play, and that card is just Jimmy Butler. If Jimmy Butler does basically what he's done the past 2 postseasons, and that's basically him turning into the Hulk, this top 5, top 6 superstar level player that doesn't fear anyone, then I think that, the Heat they have a promising, they have a promising run. They can make a run in the East, especially with this Embiid injury, in Philly, that they have a shot. They definitely have a shot now. It's before I was dubious to think that, they could contend in the East, but right now I think with the way the East is shaping up, if Terry can get acclimated and these guys can get some minutes under their belts and learn how to play as a unit, I think they're not going to be a team that you want to see in the East, especially first round. They could be an upset team, very much an upset East team. So you want to keep an eye out on that. 14, I have the Sacramento Kings. I touched upon the Kings 2 weeks ago, basically highlighting that De'Aaron Fox is taking a step up as a scorer. He's definitely leveled up. Sabonis, it seems like, as great as he was last year, he's playing at, another level. That's actually also another West snub that I didn't mention. Shout out my man, Domantas Sabonis, really hooping. He's having, I think Sabonis is on like a double streak, maybe like 25, 26 straight games, which is just unheard of. So Sabonis, Fox, definitely like, those two as your 2 guys. Them being able to play off of each other, which is not the case for all of these teams that have, 2 perimeter threats or 2 star level players. Some of them, their games are redundant. With Sabonis and Fox, we saw the impact, like as soon as he got there. Handoffs with Kevin Huerter, the handoffs with Monk, the handoffs with Fox, the slashing, the shooting, the ability to stretch the floor, pull the big out from the paint, drawing attention, his rebounding presence. Like, Sabonis is not all that tall. He's not some 7'2" guy. I think he's like 6'9", 6'10". But that guy goes and gets boards. My worry with the Kings has been basically the rest of the rotation. Kevin Huerter specifically, I know he's not having the same year he had past couple, but I think with this excess of scoring and shooting that they have with Malik Monk, who is a 6th man of the year candidate. Obviously, Trey Lyles has done a great job shooting the ball, coming off the bench. I just feel like they're too loaded at the guard position. And as much as I would say that Kevin Huerter is probably the primary piece I would move off of in search of a bona fide point of attack defender, a lot of the stuff they do on offense is predicated on him. And not just him solely, but the actions that they run, like a lot of the dribble handoffs and the pin down screens, like a lot of his, like I said about Steph Curry and his presence, Kevin Huerter is a lethal shooter. I know his number is not, at the clip that it was last year, the year before, but it's still a good number for sure. It's not like he's unplayable, but he's still a very, very formidable, serviceable shooter. And he's very important to what the Kings do. So even though I would be in search of potentially moving off an asset like that, in search of someone who can help us on the defensive end, I do understand that he does bring a lot. Now the question is, do you believe that now with Malik Monk basically ascending as this, kind of combo guard, this 2 guard that comes off the bench that's known for like heat check threes and, creating off the dribble and using his athleticism in transition, are you okay, or are you confident that you can replicate a lot of the same action and production from Kevin Huerter and give it to Monk and have Monk run a lot of those sets with Sabonis, or have Fox pick up some of those, decoy routes from Huerter? That's something I would think about, but the team definitely needs defense. They definitely need some defensive help. They definitely need another wing. So we saw Sabonis last year, kind of got beat up by Draymond Green. Literally got beat up by Draymond Green, but I just think they're one defensive piece away. I wanted OG Anunoby to go to Sacramento. I wanted Sacramento to land him. If the Kings had gone OG Anunoby, then the West would really be on notice, because now this is a team that has trouble getting stops late in games. Now you have a guy who can actually get you stops, and you're seeing what he's doing for the Knicks. The Knicks are like 11-3 since they gotten him. Net rating through the roof. Defensive rating, number 1 in the league since they've gotten him. Offensive rating is still at a very high clip, top 5, top 6. So the Knicks are very serious. I just felt like he'd be a more suitable fit in Sacramento, honestly. And now I feel like Sacramento's in quicksand. I don't know what they should do, because now it's like there's not too many hot, trade targets that's worthy of, potentially going to the second apron and adding a 3rd star level contract. Like, for example, like a guy like Kyle Kuzma who's in Washington, there's been some murmurs about him potentially being moved at the deadline. And he's a good player and he would fit beautifully in, Sacramento. But the question is it worth adding on that third big contract next to Sabonis and Fox? And we already know that Fox declined his, extension in the offseason. So you already know that he wants a bigger deal. So all these things, Monty's going to have to be very careful of. Monty McNair. He's done a great job putting the team together. When I wrote about them last year, I knew the team made sense, but I definitely knew that there was definitely a ceiling with this exact personnel. Granted, they've kind of overachieved a teeny bit. That's a team I definitely think is a defender short from actually, being what we think they're destined to be. A team that's similar to that, the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs have been riddled with injuries. Kyrie has obviously missed a bunch of games. Luka's actually missed like a couple games, and I'm saying this kind of shockingly because he's kind of like Iron Man. He never misses games. He never misses time. So, if he's sitting out, then that's something. There was a recent stretch where Luka was out, I think, for like a week. I don't know if it was an adductor strain. I forget what the injury was, but he was out for a week. And Kyrie held it down. I think Kyrie went like 5-2. He averaged like 37 points, 5-5 during the stretch that Luka was out. And then Luka came back. And I believe the second game that he came back, Kyrie, either he sprained his thumb or something like that. And then he had to miss like another 5 games. And now he just came back last night. They beat the Sixers on the road. But the Mavericks aren't getting a ton of Kyrie Luka time. And that's a good and bad thing. The bad thing is obviously it's raising questions about the Luka Kyrie dynamic, even though I'm not one to believe that they can't coexist together or they can't be two superstar players on a championship team or a team that has actual realistic championship aspirations. Their role players, they've been extremely dependent on their role players. Dante Exum, who's been a revelation, making this NBA comeback story. One of the most underrated, understated stories in the league. It's good to have him back in the league, former lottery pick. Derrick Jones Jr., this, well-known high flyer. He's been spacing the floor, guarding up, playing the passing lanes. He's been really good for the Mavericks. Josh Green out of Arizona. This like guard swing guy that I talked about like on last episode. He's been good. He's been really, really good. I think he had like 29 last night, versus the Sixers. He's been really good playing off of Kyrie and Luka. And then Derek Lively, the 12th overall pick that the Mavericks stole. Like, they completely stole that pick. When he plays, that Mavericks team is a complete different team because you're giving them rim protection. Kyrie and Luka are two of the most elite pick and roll ball handlers. So, and when it comes to lobs, like we've already seen it, like they're going to throw it up and he's going to go get it. Tim Hardaway Jr. did an outstanding job spacing the floor. I think he's leading the league in bench scoring. Shout out, Rob Mahoney. Rob Mahoney of the Ringer. He had a great piece today on Luka Doncic and basically what he was trying to get at what is the perfect formula for an all-time playmaker and floor raiser like Luka Doncic. And basically he was weighing like, do you want to oversaturate this guy with role players or do you think he actually needs a star scorer next to him? And then he explained the kind of beauty about Kyrie Irving is that Kyrie Irving's dynamic, as you guys know, he's never been a ball dominant guy, even though he's a guy that gets labeled that. But that's a guy that's played with LeBron, he's played with KD, he's played with James Harden, he's played with Luka now. And you can see that when he plays with those guys, like, it's always been that he needed them, not the other way around about like them needing him or them being effective with him or them playing off of him. But Kyrie is such a seamless, like, combo guard. Like, if you want him to run offense, he'll go run offense. You give him the ball, you want him to pound the ball the whole game, go ahead. Like, he can do that for you. He doesn't have a long track history of doing so. And on the other side of it, you have this guy in Kyrie who can play off the ball. I feel like there's still some times where Kyrie is playing too much off ball. Like, he's in the corner a little bit too much. I would still like to see a Kyrie Luka 2-man game or them to play off of each other. There was a play last night where Kyrie was posting up. I think he was posting up Springer on the Sixers, and he was posting him up on the right block, and then Kyrie is one of the most lethal, like, post-up guards in the league just because of his lethal footwork and shot creation, as we know. So, obviously, he's going to draw too. Springer, this is an unexperienced guy. He does not have no history guarding Kyrie on the block. So, obviously, they're going to bring help. And before the help even came, he just swung the ball twice. And before you know it, the ball landed in Luka Doncic's hands. Free, open, catch and shoot three. And I was on Twitter last night and I was, on the threads and I was just talking to people saying like, listen, Luka Doncic is a guy, like, if you were to think about all the volume star scores over the past 5 years, you think about a guy like Embiid, Tatum, Luka, Jokic, all these guys, how many of their buckets have been unassisted? I don't have the number in front of me, but it was just a question I asked myself. Like, Luka Doncic works extremely hard for his buckets, like very hard. A lot of them come in isolation. A lot of them come from step backs, drawing contact, going to the line a bunch, hitting shots. He exerts a lot of energy just trying to be effective himself, creating shots for himself. A guy like Kyrie, he can, like, if you give him the ball, like, he can help you out. And I feel like Jason Kidd is still reluctant to give Kyrie that kind of green light. Like, listen, this can be a 1A, 1B. I feel like at times it's kind of too much 1A to 2. I feel like it should be more so 1A, 1B. When you saw the LeBron-Kyrie dynamic or the KD-Kyrie dynamic, there were so many nights where both of those guys or both of those pairs were able to play off of each other. And I feel like that's the next step for Luka, is to take a page out of their books and try to figure out, how can I help the team, or how can I help myself without me basically like just pounding the ball all the time? Because this is a guy that has had to play an extreme amount of basketball. I said this, I think, like 2 years ago. Like, Luka Doncic does not take breaks from playing basketball. Like, he'll play 72 games, then he'll go home to Slovenia, he'll go play international basketball, and by the time that's over, training camp starts in like a month. So then he has like a month and a half to just either relax, and you already know, like, I'm assuming so in an NBA player's life, there's no such thing as relax, like, or taking a break on your off season. Like, you can take a break, but you still got to be in the gym. There are a lot of players who go on vacation, but they take their trainer with them, or they go find a gym. So when you think about it, I think he's played a lot of minutes. And Luka is not a young kid anymore. I know he's young to everyone still because, his coming into the league was just so electric and dynamic that we still think of him as this like jolly 21, 22-year-old like superstar scorer. But he's been in the league for some time now. This is a guy that was in the same draft class as Trae Young. And, we always point fingers at Trae Young talking about, hey, like, he's got to win something. Well, when's the last time Luka Doncic won something? The last time we saw Luka was in the Western Conference Finals against the Dubs. And I'm not even knocking Luka, but I'm just saying, like, he's played a lot of basketball. Now it's time for expectations to be, be legit, like, be serious, like, and he'll probably be the first to tell you, like, listen, I think we can be a championship winning team, and I think I can be the best player on a championship winning team. And I still believe so. Do I think this team can win it this year? I'm not sure. Just like the Kings, I think they're defender short. They're a prolific shooting team. Their best calling card is that every playoff series that they go into, they have 2 championship pedigree guys in Luka and Kyrie, guys who have been in playoff games. They've been in duels. They've gone toe to toe with the best. Like, obviously, we already know about Luka's history with the Clippers. Kyrie, we already know, and people like to say, oh, what's Kyrie done in 7-8 years, or what has he done without LeBron? Well, he's made some All-Star games, made some All-NBA teams. He's still been a productive basketball player. Granted, the playoff success hasn't translated to, the further stops in Boston and Brooklyn. Similar to the Kings, Mavericks, they are short a point of attack defender. I'd like to see them do something there before I take them more serious. I think they're a team that's going to get active at the deadline. A guy like PJ Washington, he would fit, on this Mavericks team. That's a guy that's coming off the bench for a Hornets team that is literally going nowhere. If they can really boost that defense, then I can probably take them more serious. But right now, they're just a hot scoring team. You know what I mean? They're a hot scoring team. I want to see what they look like, fully healthy and after the deadline. If they make a move or two, maybe we'll have to reassess who they are as a whole. But for right now, I still see them as like at best, maybe a second round team in the West. Los Angeles Lakers, who are in at 12, actually been hot as of late. They had an impressive win against the Knicks, even though they were down Julius Randle. You saw LeBron on the last possession where he was basically guarding Jalen Brunson as if he was in the 2009 Eastern Conference Finals, like he was guarding Derrick Rose. Like, it was crazy. LeBron is insane. Like, I saw that and I was just like, bro, like, I don't have any more words for you. Like, why is LeBron James guarding Jalen Brunson with the game on the line? Why? Why is that? Why? Like, if I'm Austin Reeves or I'm D'Angelo Russell, I'm just like I feel like a scrub because this guy's 40 years old. This guy could be, my uncle, but he's over here guarding one of the best point guards in the world who has been fairly hot the past like month or so in Jalen Brunson. And that spoke volumes to me. I'm just like, man, this guy is just, he's a junkie. He's definitely a basketball junkie because there's no reason for him at 39, 40 years old to be guarding Jalen Brunson with the game on the line. That's literally why you brought guys like Cam Reddish, Rui Hachimura. Like, that's why you brought those guys in to do that. You brought those guys in to do that dirty work. But here he is, 20-time All-Star, LeBron James guarding Jalen Brunson with the game on the line. Like, he's just out of this world. He's out of this world. But the Lakers, I have them at 12. They've had an up and down season. Season's been kind of cloudy since that in-season tournament. It's interesting. I heard in a podcast someone say that, the in-season tournament is probably like one of the best and worst things for, contending teams because someone like the Lakers, like, they go into the tournament, all cards on deck, so much emotion and energy is put into this in-season tournament, the inaugural in-season tournament. They come out victorious and then they just struggle immediately. So I think there was kind of like a punch to the gut. Like it seems like it was pretty difficult for them to revamp and be like, oh shoot, like this is still the regular season. This is not a championship setting. Granted, those were the vibes that, the in-season tournament gave off and very entertaining to say the least. But I feel like in terms of keeping your momentum, staying level headed, never too high, never too low. I think that was just a challenge for the Lakers going on because it's weird. They didn't have any significant injuries outside of Vanderbilt early on. Like, obviously, Vanderbilt was out with his own injury, but there was no reason for the Lakers to struggle. Like, Davis and LeBron have been available all year. D'Angelo Russell has been playing very solid basketball, past almost 2 months. And, I don't know. I can't really point to what the problem is. All I can say is that the players aren't playing well. I didn't buy into the whole Zach LaVine sweepstakes. I didn't buy into the whole DeJounte Murray sweepstakes. I'm not even sure if DeJounte Murray even moves the needle more than what D'Angelo Russell is offering you right now because D'Angelo Russell, like, going to the past, like, 15 games, like, his numbers are off the charts. He's like 27 a night, 6 assists, shooting very well from the floor, shooting the 3-ball at a high clip. He's playing like career level basketball right now. Now, my thing is like, DeJounte Murray is having a career year, jump shooting, catch and shoot, pull-up jumpers. All his numbers are just, he's really peaking right now as a shooter, a jump shooter right now. Now, my question is, with D'Angelo Russell's skill set and what he offers you on the basketball court, is it worth moving off of him and potentially a couple other assets in hopes of DeJounte Murray, you getting, an all-star form of DeJounte Murray? Does that really move the needle? Does that make you closer to a better championship team? Cause keep in mind, D'Angelo Russell was traded there last year. So he's only had one training camp with the Lakers. And that was this past summer, obviously. And now, as you can see, with more repetitions, with more volume, with getting more acclimated to his team and building that necessary camaraderie, he's playing very well. Like, him and Austin Reeves came into Boston like 3 nights ago, and they just completely decimated a team led by Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And that was so alarming to me. It was so alarming because, like, I don't know if it was more of a reflection of who the Celtics are or who the Lakers are or who the Lakers can be. Me, personally, I thought it was something of who the Lakers can be. We saw what would the team look like if, the ball is in the hands of Reeves and Russell for a little bit. And Russell had a little soundbite talking about, listen, when you, basically paraphrasing, basically what he was saying was like, listen, if you give us more reps, that's how trust is going to be built. And that's how we can build like really, really solid chemistry. And he's not wrong. He really isn't wrong. I mean, he's been playing at a high level. I don't know if it's worth moving off of D'Lo, changing up the whole core again to get DeJounte Murray, who I think they're in the same tier personally. I don't think the needle is, I don't think it moves that much with either or. And so I would just stick with the camaraderie and the chemistry, bank on playing some really good hoop the last couple months of the season after the All-Star break, probably land the playing spot, and then just players. Like, the West is going to be insane. Like, whoever is the 1 seed is going to draw a crazy team like Phoenix or Dallas or Golden State or, any of these, like, kind of weird West teams that have been competitive, but, their record doesn't completely show it. Like, West 1 through 8 is not the same West 1 through 8 from 2006, like, or 2015. Like, it's just completely different. It's completely different. Like, you have a team like the Utah Jazz that can go and beat any of these teams on any given night. That's just how good the West is. And I say the Utah Jazz because they're a well-coached team. They have players that know their roles, and they play hard every night. And it doesn't take a lot to beat a team in the West. It doesn't. If you have little talent, you play hard, stretch the floor. These West games, they be in shootouts. Like, they really do be in shootouts. So they're probably going to make a move. Hopefully it's not moving off D'Lo. I think D'Lo's playing too high of a level, and I don't think this is a situation where they're just like, okay, let's build up his trade value. And personally, I don't think I'm a fan of you building his trade value in search of DeJounte Murray, who gives you what? DeJounte Murray gives you probably like 85, 90% of like the D'Angelo Russell scoring capabilities. I think D'Lo's still slightly a higher level scorer just because that's what he came into the league as, a kind of a dual threat point guard that can facilitate for others, thrive in pick and roll. He can catch and shoot. He can shoot off the dribble. He's not great at getting to the rim or drawing fouls. But he's a guy that can score in bunches very quickly, and he's a guy that is very confident. And, we saw it in that I think it was 2020 playoffs when he was with Brooklyn under Kenny Atkinson, made his All-Star team, that team with Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, Theo Pinson. I only say Theo Pinson because, he was always on the bench doing the whole dance. That Nets team was lit. But, yeah, I got the Lakers at 12, Milwaukee Bucks 11. They've been a very weird East team. Very weird contender. One of the most weird East contenders in recent memory. You make the move for Dame Dollar, and, I think they're a top 10 offensive rating team too. And for all of Dame's struggles shooting from the floor this year, they've still been prolific. They haven't run as many Dame Giannis pick and rolls, which I thought was funny because my brother is 19 years old, and I think even he would be able to tell you what the first source of offense what that should be from a Dame Giannis led team. I would just run a million pick and rolls. You pick your poison. Giannis is a solid playmaker. He can make the play off the bounce, off that roll. He can make that pass, whether it's a dump to Bobby or a kick out to Bobby or a kick out to Pat Connaughton, Malik Beasley, who's shooting at a ridiculous clip this year. I think he's like a top 5 3-point shooter this year too. The Bucks have good pieces. I'm worried about if they can win games defensively. I know Giannis is still an all-time defensive player, but I think he has to do a lot more cleanup than he has had to do in years past. And I know that's not saying a lot because they moved off of Drew Holiday, and Brook Lopez is a little bit older. Jay Crowder is a little bit older. Chris Middleton, he's been okay. He's still fighting back from those previous injuries. He's starting to turn the corner similar to how Clay did last year. He's had some games, 20 plus. But I'm not sure. This team is too weird. Adrian Griffin gets fired. That whole vibe was weird. They were like second in the East. Why was that necessary? They bring in Doc Rivers. Not only was he a great analyst at The Ringer and ESPN, but I was having a great time soaking up game from him and just the things he was saying and, talking about the teams he was coaching. And obviously my source of all this information is Bill Simmons, the pod father. But Bill was bummed out that he left The Ringer to go coach, and so was I, because it's like, damn, like, what am I going to listen to on these 6 a.m. drives to work? Yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks, they've had some weird losses. They just had a couple rough road losses against the Jazz, where they let up 40 in the fourth quarter after a 19-point lead. And I think a couple nights before that, they lost to Portland, who is like arguably the worst team in the league. So it's definitely been a little bit of an adjustment for, the Doc era in Milwaukee. I still can't even believe he's over there, but when they're right, this is still a Giannis Antetokounmpo led team. There are not a lot of playoff guys that I would take in a 7-game series before him. And at the end of the day, he's never played with a shot creator like Dame Dollar. Dame is shooting like 40, he's having a career low from the field, maybe other than his rookie year. But I think he's shooting like 41, 42%. Definitely unlike him. Bright spot, he's still getting to the line, shooting 92% from there. So his counting stats are there. Him not hitting shots was enough for me to not name him to my All-Star team. I just feel like I said, the Bucks are still a top 5 offensive rating team, top 3 team in the East. And what is scary is if the Bucks are able to still play at such a high level amidst all this, internal adversity and, Dame not shooting well and all, the search for perimeter defenders to guard all these perimeter threats. If those are the problems they're overcoming now and they're still able to play at this high of a level, then I would definitely be scared of them, when they're all right, especially mentally, and once they get acclimated with Doc. So I'm definitely not pushing the panic button with them. Let's give it a couple weeks. Let's see what Doc can do. This is a guy that was given the job and then he literally left the Ringer and left ESPN and went to Milwaukee. I've never seen that in my time as an NBA fan, covering the game, writing about the game, talking about the game. I've never seen a coach get fired mid-season as his team is literally a top 4 team in the conference, get replaced, and not just the team play that well, but the team with the expectations coming into the season as, this team is a championship contender. I've never seen that. You know what I mean? So it's unprecedented. Things like that happen. I'd be surprised if they even made the finals, to be honest with you, because a lot of these things take reps. A lot of these things take time. You don't just put a championship team together. And that doesn't mean just for player personnel. That means coaching too. You don't just put a championship coaching staff together just like that and the players are all going to abide by them and boom, we're just going to hit the floor running. No, it definitely takes time. But yeah, I had Milwaukee at 11. Before I continue, there's actually only 4 teams that are top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating. One of those teams is the New Orleans Pelicans. So I have them at 10. Brandon Ingram, like I mentioned earlier, I feel like he's just such a tone setter for their offense. I think he really means a lot to their team and what they like to do, possession to possession. The team is deep. The team is like 8, 9 players deep. You got B.I., Valanciunas, Zion, CJ McCollum, who just came back from injury, I believe like a month and a half ago. He's turned the corner. He's providing, in the non-Ingram minutes, it's very important that they have another guy who can create off the dribble, play make for others, stretch the floor, things like that. So that dynamic has been good. That card that they can play, having CJ McCollum there. He's a vet. He's been to the playoffs before. So he is definitely valuable to them. Then you got guys like Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy III, Jose Alvarado. Like, this team is deep. The team is deep. Similar in age. They're hungry. I always go back to the Pelicans series that I watched in 2021, the first round series. Zion wasn't healthy. I think he had a season-ending injury. But Brandon Ingram, the way he played against that Phoenix Suns team that ended up winning the West, it spoke volumes to me because I was like, okay, he lost, but this is not going to be the last time we see Brandon Ingram in a playoff setting. The thing that really wowed me was this guy takes playoff shots. This guy takes shots that can win a game. This guy is not afraid to take shots that can change the dynamic of the game. Everyone already knows, like, in playoff games, the game slows down. The refs aren't going to call the same calls that they probably were in November and December. But it's important that you have guys like Brandon Ingram that can command all 3 levels of the floor, be a threat from every spot on the floor, and, being able to have a leader that can play make and enhance players on the offensive end. That's important. And then on the other side of it, they have shooters. They got Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, guys who can go defend, Jose Alvarado. You got Zion, who there's maybe like 5 guys in the league that can even stay in front of him, let alone, hang with him in the air and take his physical mass. And, there's only a handful of guys that can really deal with Zion confidently in a playoff setting. So you have to account for him. The team is just playing very, very well. The team's playing very well. Given what the West is and given the star power that is in the West, they're playing well. They're playing good basketball. So I have them at 10. At 9, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. I actually expect them to slip a little bit because of the Joel Embiid injury. But out of respect for Tyrese Maxey, Nick Nurse and everything they've done, they've been a really good team. their starting five lineup of Maxey, D'Anthony Melton, Batum, Embiid, and Tobias Harris, they've been one of the most productive five-man lineups all year. I probably said that like a month ago, but it's been sustainable. So we have actual evidence that okay, this team makes sense. It's still early. I want to see how the Joel Embiid stretch plays out without him. Definitely, it's a huge void on both sides of the court, but it's always next man up, and Nick Nurse is one of the best in the biz at getting his guys ready to play. So I have them at 9. At 8, I have the Phoenix Suns. I talked about KD and Booker a little bit earlier. Obviously, both of them making my Western Conference All-Star team. They had an insane January. I think the big reason as to why they've not just played at an elite level, but they've found an identity. And a big reason for that is obviously Bradley Beal just had 43 in his homecoming in DC. A couple games before that, he's had some weird injury luck. Like the guy played a preseason game this year, then he has a tweaked back. Tries to come back, tweaks it again, has a setback, he's out for some time. Comes back, makes his debut, then he tweaks his ankle. Misses like 5 games, then he comes back, then he gets hit in the nose. So now the guy's wearing a face mask like he's Rip Hamilton. Like, God, like the guy can't catch a break. Like, damn. But, Bradley Beal's impact, it's evident. You know what I mean? He gets on the floor. It's another 3-level star score they have to account for. The Suns have 3 guys that can go for 40 on any given night. Any given night. Maybe 50. Maybe. You got 2 guys that can go for 50. But, them having 3 guys who've been to the playoffs. I know Beal hasn't had a recent track history of getting, to the postseason given the situations he was in DC. Actually, no, he made it in 2021, I believe, actually with Russ. I think they got swept by Joel Embiid, but still, he hasn't played a multi-round playoffs. Actually, I don't even know if he's played a multi-round playoffs ever. Maybe one. I think he might have had a couple with John Wall, maybe in that 16-17 range. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to double check, but him being healthy is the biggest W for that team because that team doesn't have a lot of assets to play with at the deadline. There's a rumor going around that they're very, very interested in Miles Bridges. I don't mind the gamble, but my thing is they don't really need additional shooting or scoring. They already have 3 elite scorers. They have 2 great shooters in Eric Gordon, Grayson Allen. The team gets good looks. In January, I think they were like the second or third best offense. So the team with Brad healthy is a complete different team than the team we saw early on in December, without Brad. They're just a complete different team. Him being able to play that sort of backup point guard hybrid role in non-Booker minutes is probably the biggest thing for this whole season because no Beal means no backup point guard. No backup point guard means that Book is not shooting as much, and him not shooting as much means he's making plays for other people. And granted, he can do that. He's averaging a career high in assists this year at 7 a night. But my thing is, we already know they're not a team like the Pelicans. They don't have 9 guys that they're going to play. They're probably going to play like 6, 7, 8. You know what I mean? 6 is crazy, actually. It's like 7, 8. And my thing is, though I don't know who exactly they should get at the deadline, I just don't know if Miles Bridges is, the ideal option. Obviously, he'd be a huge, huge, huge help off the bench. And that allows you to kind of watch KD's minutes, Booker's minutes, because with the playoff approaching, especially KD, we saw last year, they just ended up getting gassed. And we saw that, KD, and even though he had his multitude of injuries last year, he wasn't able to really catch a good footing. So personally, I just feel like though Miles Bridges would help them become even more lethal offense, I don't know if that's the pathway to them winning a ring or them, potentially representing the West down the line. I think that, with the minimal assets that they have, this is a second apron team. I'm just not sure if Miles Bridges is the answer. Like you already have 3 scorers. So now if you bring Bridges in, now you're going to allocate the touches even more across. Now there's 4 scorers. Who's really taking the step back? Because if you have 4 guys, someone has to definitively take the step back, regardless if Miles Bridges is starting or not. But outside of that, they've been they've been a great team. They've been a really, really good team. So I have the Suns at 8. They've been playing really good basketball. New York Knicks at 7. The OG Anunoby trade has been, it's been a great move for them. The impact was instant. They've been one of the best teams in the league, period, since he's gone there. Jalen Brunson has been one of the best players in the league, period. Even before Anunoby got there, he's been on a special stretch the past month and a half. They just lost Julius Randle to an injury. Just the sufficeable amount of scoring, star power, coaching, defenders, shooting to get by while Julius is out, especially led by Jalen Brunson. If Jalen Brunson is going to play at this level for the next month or so, I don't think I'll be as worried about them. But yeah, the New York Knicks, they're just one of the best two-way teams in the league. They're the other team. Like I mentioned, the 4 teams that are top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating. The Knicks, they were the second team. Obviously, had named the Pelicans, and then the 2 teams have yet to be named. But they're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a tough out. I'm really looking forward to the second round of the East matchups because they're going to be a lot better than last year. I have a really good feeling about it. At number 6, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by shooting guard Donovan Mitchell, who I think should be in MVP talks. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley going down earlier this year and then missing a substantial amount of time that could have completely impacted their season. But Donovan Mitchell stayed grounded. Donovan Mitchell, this is a guy that I've just become accustomed to things like this. He's just an elite 2 guard. He's just an elite 2 guard. Where's he at? Let's see. Donovan Mitchell. So Donovan Mitchell, since Darius Garland went down on December 16th, since then, he is averaging 28.9 points per game, 5.1 rebounds, 7.8 assists, shooting 48.6% from the field, 36% from 3, and 83% from the line. The Cavs are 15-3 in that span. Second in defensive rating, and the 5-man lineup of Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Max Strus, Wade, and Isaac Okoro per 100 possessions, they're a plus 21.8 net rating. The role players they've just been stepping up. Next man up. Wade, like I mentioned, Isaac Okoro playing great defense. Jared Allen, who he almost made my All-Star team. He was on the bubble. I think his impact, he has been the second most valuable player this season for the Cavs, even more than Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, because when they went down, it was really early on. So yeah, the Cavs have surprised me. I thought this was a team that was probably going to be 500 by the time the team got back together, but the next man up, these guys have been playing at a high level on the defensive end. Yeah, they just demolished the Kings team. I think this Cavs defense thing, this is real. My only concern for them is if Mobley doesn't look for his shot the same way he didn't in the Knicks series last year, where are the Cavs' limitations in terms of scoring threats? That's the thing with the Darius Garland Donovan Mitchell pairing is I'm not sure. It's not like, I don't want to say that they can't play together, they can't coexist, but my question is what should I take from last year? Should I just throw that out the window and think maybe Darius Garland, that was his first playoff run, throw it out the window, he wasn't ready, whatever. Because the playoffs can be a little challenging, can be overwhelming for some of these stars. Or maybe, I don't want to say it's not working, but even when it does work, that there's limitations to their ceiling as a team. Because you look around, if Donovan Mitchell's shot's not falling, is Evan Mobley going to be aggressive enough at a point in the playoffs in a setting where he can create a shot for his own, or go on a stretch where he can go create for himself? Can Darius Garland sustain the physicality that's in the playoffs? That, can he still, and he's shown, he had a couple good games in that Knicks series, but it just wasn't consistent. So now it's like, maybe this is just his first playoff run. Maybe he just is now learning the learning curve of the playoffs. Maybe he's now just getting adjusted to that. But the playmaking capabilities on this team, Mitchell and Garland, this is something similar to the Clippers with Harden and Westbrook on the floor. If you have Garland and Mitchell not just together on the floor at all times, but if you have one of them on the floor, you like the type of shots that your team's going to generate. So yeah, but I mean, it's a good problem to have nonetheless. It's going to be something I'm going to look at over the course of the next 2 weeks. The Cleveland Cavs, they've been one of the best two-way teams in the league, one of the best teams period in the league, over the past month and a half. So definitely want to keep your eyes up for that. They have them at 6. Minnesota Timberwolves, Another great two-way team. I have him at 5. Anthony Edwards, MVP candidate. His counting stats aren't going to tell the story, but him being able to take this leap is the reason why the Wolves went from a borderline playoff team last year to now a formidable West contender. And everything about him, this marketable superstar. Exciting. It's exciting for Minnesota to have this transcendent superstar talent at their disposal. You know, they hadn't had a guy since KG. So it's good that, you know, another organization is getting a fresh start with, you know, a star. And a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, who was your franchise star, who's still a franchise cornerstone and a very important guy in your locker room. But it's definitely cool to see that he's been able to kind of be like, okay, I'm cool over here. Like, no, Ant, you do that. You do your thing. I'm cool over here. That dynamic, that's been able to work. Him being the older guy, you don't see that. Like, Karl-Anthony Towns, I believe, he was a number 1 overall pick, right? You do not see very often former number 1 overall picks kind of be able to take that back seat, like, you know what, this is his team. And, you know, Towns hasn't been outspoken and been like, oh, this is Ant's team, but the writing's on the wall that, you know, this is Ant's organization. Cat is very much a very important piece to, you know, the Ant era, the early Ant era. But as an older guy, a guy that is been learning how to win himself, with minimal playoff experience, it's definitely cool for him to land a guy like Ant. And for that guy, for him to be able to go to war with Ant on a nightly basis is definitely a luxury for him too. So I have them at 5. Minnesota Timberwolves, they've been one of the best two-way teams in the league. This whole two bigs thing is something people kind of called out. Past couple years is, listen, does the Gobert Towns thing work? But listen, like in 2003, like no one would question a pairing with Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns. Granted, in 2003, Karl-Anthony Towns is a center and he's taking like 5-6 threes a game. That wouldn't be the case either. But, you know, with the landscape of the NBA evolving, it's a rim protector, and then Karl-Anthony Towns gets to basically do what he does. This is what he wants to do. He wants to take 15-footers, thrive in pick and pop, shoot threes, rebound, you know, be a presence on the rim. And, you know, he wanted to be this type of scorer. This was the type of guy he's destined to be. But, you know, I think people wanted him to be this Hakeem Olajuwon, this two-way force, this post footwork technician that thrives on, you know, working himself on the block and all these counters and, you know, hooks and protecting the rim and this physicality and bashfulness. Like, that's what people wanted Karl-Anthony Towns to be, this, you know, out of world, like, you know, interior presence. But that might not be who he is. Dirk Nowitzki was never that. People never asked Dirk Nowitzki, like, oh, why don't you bang on the block? Why don't you go to the rim? Why don't you know what I mean? Why don't you thrive inside? Like, no, he was a finesse player, one of the best scorers ever, one of the best players ever. And he was still able to make a career out of being that, a 3-level finesse 4. So I think that's the calling card for Towns. I think that's the way he wants his career to play out. Him playing next to a guy like Rudy Gobert, the same way Dirk was able to play next to guys like Sean Marion, Tyson Chandler, Jason Kidd, these older defenders. You know, that's going to go ways for Karl-Anthony Towns because everyone's kind of slouched on him for his defense and, you know, he doesn't play D, blah, 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 blah. But now he has Anthony Edwards, he has Jaden McDaniels, he has Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, guys who are going to compete on both ends of the floor and, you know, maybe wipe off for his mistakes. And Karl-Anthony Towns is not a bad, like, help defender. If he's your help defender as a big, like, he's still a hard guy to, you know, convert shots on at the rim. So, Minnesota, they've been atop the West all year, so no one should be shocked that I have them at 5. Number 4, I have the Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, you know, KCP, all those boys. One of the best teams in the league the past like 2-3 years. Obviously, the defending champs, can't take nothing away from them. Their 5-man unit, still one of the most productive units across the league. The advanced metrics with that team is still off the charts. You still have arguably the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic on your team. He is going to, on a nightly basis, create mismatches, great shots. He's going to find you, put you in places where you can be productive and thrive. And, you know, I can't really say much about the Denver Nuggets. You know, Mike Malone there. They're going to be another deep Western Conference team. But I think this year, this this route to the finals is going to be a little different because you have some younger teams that are taking steps up. Just like the team I'm about to get into next. At 3, I have the OKC Thunder. OKC Thunder, led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, these young guns. I've been impressed with them because not only at how young they are, it's not like they're scoring a bajillion points every night. This team is, like, they play really, really good fundamental basketball. I was watching the OKC Raptors game a couple nights ago, obviously because I had Shai on one of my FanDuel legs, obviously. But I had him for 25 plus. He didn't hit the 25 plus, but I was watching the way the Raptors were guarding him, and it was almost like a 2-3 zone, but they'd have the guy initially guarding Shai, which was Scotty Barnes. He'd be on him, and then they'd have, Gary Trent Jr. or RJ Barrett on the opposite wing, or the adjacent wing kind of like shading over, trying to prevent those, deadly dribble drives. He's one of the deadliest, like, drive guys, like, in the league. Like, if you look at the volume and the efficiency on his drives, they're insane. I think he actually leads the league in drives, Shai Gilgeous. So, shout out J-Dub. J-Dub was honestly a Western Conference bubble player, like bubble for the All-Star. I've been very impressed with J-Dub. Very, very impressed. I think he should be in the most improved player conversation. His numbers are off the charts. His numbers are off the charts. I think he's the second best player on the team. I think he's actually better than Chet. Chet is good, but I don't think Chet's there yet. I think J-Dub is actually like J-Dub might be ready for an All-Star team next year. Seriously, seriously. Jalen Williams he's like that. So I would definitely keep an eye out for him. For those of you who aren't used to watching Thunder games or League Pass, J-Dub, watch out. Yeah, J-Dub, like I said, Lou Dort, Shai, Chet, Isaiah Joe, all these guys, they're just a young, vibrant, fun team to watch, and they're led by this fearless mother effort in Shai Gilgeous, who doesn't give a damn who you are. He'll go drop 35 on you and then go drop an IG caption right after. He's a killer, man. He's a killer. OKC is the third team. They're one of the 4 teams that is top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating. Number 2, the Celtics, who are the 4th team. One of the 4 teams that is top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating. The Boston Celtics. Tatum, Jalen, Horford, what do they call this dude? Crypto P. Crypto P, my man Payne Pritch, Drew Holiday, Derek White, the whole gang. I'll start off with this. And I know, for those of you watching, I haven't talked about the Celtics, really much. Granted, they're my team, as people hear me say. Granted, I talk about a bunch of teams, but no, the Celtics are my team. They are my team. But I cannot get over the late game situation stuff and I've seen it. I'm going to talk about it. There was a game against the Thunder earlier this season. There was a game against the Minnesota Timberwolves earlier this season. Specifically the Timberwolves one. I believe the game was tied. Tatum and Brown both had opportunities to either win the game or take the lead with the game, on the line. And they opted for long distance 3-point jump shots. That purely drives me insane because in my opinion, I think those two are 2 of the most athletic at their position. How many guys at the small forward position are a better athlete than Jason Tatum or have, a better, size makeup? These guys in post-up situations, they are so productive. They both shoot over 48-50% from the floor when they post up these smaller guys. My thing is, and I talked about this in the playoffs last year, is that when we have games where the 3 ball is not falling and Missoula ball is not really working in a game 5 in a critical series, what is our next calling card? I don't want it to be Jalen and Jason Tatum, your turn, my turn, ISO. No. We've seen the redundancy of that. In fact, it's evident in the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard era too. Granted, those guys have probably done a better job playing off of each other than Tatum and Brown. I think Tatum and Brown they're younger, but Paul George and Kawhi, that's been the blueprint. Granted, they haven't gone to the finals yet either, but that's not for reasons of them not being able to coexist with each other or make each other better, but the problem has been injuries. The Celtics issue or Tatum and Jalen's issue has just been trying to play off of each other. How do we make each other better? Granted, they basically play the same position, this perimeter wing spot. But when I talk about the redundancy between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, the type of shots they take and how they can make the game easier for themselves, Porzingis, him being the dimension that he brings to the Celtics that they haven't had in a while, probably since maybe Young Al, but even Young Al wasn't this like commanding scorer on the block. Porzingis being able to stretch the floor and being able to literally attack mismatches, that's really the biggest playing card for the Celtics. That is literally the reason why they are the best team in the league. They've been, a premier team in the league for years, like past 2-3 years. They've always been a top 3, top 4 East team. And then they flame out in the playoffs for numerous reasons. And one reason I feel like is I'm just not sure if the shots that they tend to get, if that is going to be the recipe for success in June. You know what I mean? We saw it in 2022. They just became a turnover machine even after basically tying the series 2-2. And, we already know that the rest was history, but I'm just worried about the shots that they're going to get late in games. That's my only thing. I wish they would lower the 3-point takes. I've seen Tatum have some stretches. I think past 2 weeks, he's lowered his 3-point takes and he's actually shooting at a higher clip from the field overall. And you want to see things like that. Jaylen Brown, he's been amazing. I think he's going to be in the dunk contest actually. So that should be very exciting. But I mean, this team on paper, this team is the best team in basketball. Arguably the best team in basketball, a top 2 team, without a doubt. Definitely has some room for growth, but I like what I've seen all year. They've really been playing at a high level. But yeah, the 3-point shooting and the Jaylen Brown, Tatum self-awareness on, late game shot situations. That's what I'm going to look out for. Derek White, Drew Holiday, I'm not really worried about them. They've been playing at a really, really high level all year. But yeah, Celtics have them at 2, and then at number 1 I have the LA Clippers. Kawhi, Harden, Russ, PG. Specifically that 4-man lineup actually. And before I did say that, to make this thing work, Russ has to be on the bench. And that's still the formula for them. But there's been some stretches where the LA kids, the 4 of them, Kawhi, PG, Harden, and Russ, they play together and they are productive. There's no redundancies. They know how to play off of each other and they're winning games. They had past couple of games, they had a back-to-back, very impressive. They went to Miami. They were kind of battling them. Then they took over in the fourth quarter. Then the Atlanta Hawks game, they were down a little bit, came back, won that one. In a high scoring affair. I think they won like 149, 144. Kawhi Leonard is playing, I don't know if I want to say career basketball, but in terms of like efficiency, it's career basketball. I know his touches are down, but the looks that he's getting are they're just as efficient as he's ever had. There's no way he's been on a team that's been able to generate him more open looks, or a team that's had guys that command as much attention as PG, Harden, and Russ, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, Zubac and Plumlee, very good, solid bigs. So this team they're built for June. The only thing holding them back is injury. Promise you. I already said that James Harden doesn't have to go off games 1 through 4 because you have Kawhi and PG. Like literally the 2 of them can all take turns on who takes over the game. And Westbrook's going to have 1 to 2 great playoff games too, with that core. So led by Ty Lue, one of the best in the business at adjustments, lineup management, he's got a ring. He's been there, so he knows what to do. And they looked promising last year. Just Russ and Kawhi against that Phoenix team. They looked very promising. That game 1 was no fluke. No fluke at all. So now with Harden and PG, revitalized, a deeper core, a deeper team. I'm very excited to see what the Clippers bring. So I have them closing down my power pool. So listen, appreciate y'all for tuning in to another great episode of Nass nassthepod. Season 3-ish here, man. We're still rolling, still going. A lot of hoop left, man, and I low-key need this All-Star break. Like I said, I do appreciate you guys' time. Appreciate you guys following me on this fun journey. And the journey is the reward, ladies and gents. So shout out to everyone that came in, tuned into the pod. Nass nassthepod Season 3 stuff going down. We're still rolling. We're still going. We're still punching. This is your favorite Nappy Boy Radio DJ signing off. Nass nassthepod Season 3. Alright, y'all be easy. Hey, subscribe to this too, man. Come on, like, subscribe, support a brother, man. Support a brother in need. I am in need, so support me. Like I said, this is Nappy Boy Radio signing off. Season 3, not support. Alright.